Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Darshan Bhagat. I am the lead for product management for our HashiCorp Vault product line. And it is my pleasure to welcome you all on this first ever pre-release and preview webinar for our release 1.9. So thank you so much for joining us. We have a lot of interesting things in terms of what we have been able to deliver for 1.9. But before we get started, let me introduce the team we have here. And we have the whole Vault product management team online. So feel free to please ask questions in the Q&A panel. You have the very experts who are responsible for building the product available to be able to answer those questions. Plus, we have Hope from our customer success management team. She heads up all of the customer success management. And thanks to her and Kaylee for helping us set this up. Feel free to please again ask questions or comments, and we'll be happy to respond. So as I said, this is the first ever pre-release webinar and insights into Vault 1.9. And the goal really is to help facilitate a little bit of a dialogue and gather your feedback, gather your questions, and how we can help you move forward on your journey in adopting Vault. And so this is a little bit of a pre-release. And the Q&A certainly helps all of us to prepare better for the upcoming 1.9 release. So from a logistics standpoint, please put your questions in the Q&A box as shown here, and we'll respond as soon as we can. Now, and we'll leave some live Q&A at kind of the end of the webinar, depending on the timing. So if we think about Vault, of course, Vault is many things, right? It is a secrets management tool. It helps with internal PKI. It helps with key management. It can do advanced data protection. It can help with KMIP integrations. And our focus in developing Vault is really around key themes like how we can help our customers consume and use Vault easier. So product experience and the usability of it is front and center for us. Similarly, how can we expand our ecosystem so that you can include the goodness of Vault in more of your workflows and consolidate that secrets management and data management into one platform? And at the same time, how can we help you scale or run Vault at performance? All of these are key focus areas for us. How we can help you do more PKI workflows, for example, or more secrets management. And so in line with that, you'll see that as we go along, 1.9 is aligned with that philosophy. But as you see us in the future, we'll have something similar in terms of where we are investing our time and energy in building Vault for you. Okay. So with 1.9, I think we have made a few key changes, improved attribution of Vault clients, and Darshana will kind of walk us through details around that. We have enhanced the key management functions to also now include GCP. We are adding some preview functions for OIDC, and Narayan will walk us through that, as well as a lot around kind of how we can manage and update KV secrets through APIs. We have kind of refined some workflows and enhancements to make it more efficient and easy there. But there is lots of goodness. So let me hand it over to the team. I'll hand it over first to Darshana to walk us through some of those early features.
Thank you, Darshan. Hi, everybody. I'm Darshana, product manager on the Vault team. Next slide, please. So the first set of feature improvements I'd like to talk about are client count improvements. Let me start by giving a little bit of background here. So as you are probably aware, clients in Vault are unique applications, services, and/or users that authenticate to a Vault cluster. They are used to track Vault consumption and thus are used for the purposes of building conversations. So your Vault license is based on the type of Vault cluster you use, like production or dev, as well as a number of active clients associated with the cluster for the billing period, which is typically 1 year in the case of self-managed Vault. Currently, there are 2 different tools available to help you understand your historic Vault usage in terms of clients. There's the auditor tool, which leverages audit logs. And this is a tool you'd use if you're using a version of Vault older than 1.6. And then there's also usage metrics UI that has an API associated with it as well. And this is the tool that you'd be using in terms of newer versions of Vault. So anything starting 1.6 onwards. So that's just a bit of background. So in 1.9, we've made updates to the usage metrics UI tool as well as the API. We've not made updates to the auditor tool. So prior to 1.9, the UI had some limitations. So it only showed aggregates of clients for the selected start and end dates. And it did not split clients per namespace and provide more granular attribution of clients that we've heard a lot of customers request us for. So they can understand a little more about origination of these clients. Similarly, prior to 1.9, when you enable this feature, client aggregates would only show up in the UI after a month and not immediately on feature enablement. So the good news is we fixed these issues in 1.9, and I'll show you a screenshot of the before and after experience so you can have a better idea as to what I'm talking about. One thing to note is that Vault clients are a combination of active identities as well as non-entity tokens. Identity entities are unique users, and when identities authenticate to Vault, corresponding tokens are generated. However, there are some situations in which tokens are generated without corresponding identities. For example, if you use the token auth method to create a token for someone else whose identity is unknown. Hence, within Vault, these non-entity tokens are also representative of users and are counted towards the overall client aggregate. So typically, client aggregates over your billing period are a combination of active identities as well as non-entity tokens. And we have documentation on this in case you want to dive a little deeper. Prior to 1.9, we did not have a way to deduplicate non-entity tokens, which meant that every time those tokens were used, they incremented the client count. What we've done in 1.9 is we've changed the non-entity token computation logic to deduplicate non-entity tokens, resulting in the reduction in overall client counts. We've also changed local auth mount computation logic in case you're using local auth mounts for the purposes of compliance and GDPR. And we've changed the logic such that local auth mounts count towards clients, but not as non-entity tokens. So net in 1.9, we've made sure that we've elevated your experience with regards to understanding attribution of clients within Vault. And we've also ensured that we're providing much more reliable overall aggregates for clients. Next slide, please. So here's a screenshot of what the usage metrics UI looked in Vault 1.6 to 1.8, so prior to 1.9. You can see that we only displayed an aggregate total of clients split by unique entities and non-entity tokens for the selected billing period. We did not provide granular attribution of clients per namespace. Next slide, please. As I already mentioned, in 1.9, we're providing granular attribution per namespace with the attribution for top 10 being displayed in the UI and the ability to export data for all namespaces. You can also search for totals by selecting a particular namespace. In fact, post 1.9, we plan to provide even more granular attribution for clients. So stay tuned for our future releases for more updates on this. I will now hand it over to Aarti to share information on Vault feature deprecation and plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Darshana. And I'm very excited to be talking about some of the things that we have done in the 1.9 release to bring you more value from a vault standpoint. One of the things we have heard from customers is that we have announced deprecations of a few features, but it is unclear really what the status of those deprecated features is. And what we have done in 1.9 is streamlined the deprecation. You will see new documentation added as of 1.9 that calls out these deprecation plans. As you can see in this table, we have about 6 features that we are explicitly calling out in the new docs that you will see as of 1.9. Most of these actually include features that have been deprecated for a long time now. The deprecation announcement has been called out many releases ago, as you can see, ranging from Vault 0.6 to even Vault 1.8. So really the only feature that we are announcing a new deprecation for is the removal of the etcd v2 API. The rest, which is the removal of licensing in storage, you should have heard a lot about it with the licensing changes that were rolled out in 1.8. And the others, the deprecation of mount filters, the deprecation of the legacy MFA in Vault, the deprecation of standalone DB engines and App ID. These are all features that have had deprecation announcements captured in documentation several releases ago. As part of this plan, you can now see that there are different phases we call out. There is the deprecation announcement. It is a re-emphasis that if you are using these features, they will be removed in a future Vault release. And you can see that called out in the table in the docs as well. And you need to actively work with your HashiCorp customer success representative to migrate to the alternate capability that we have provided. As an example, in the case of etcd, customers should make sure that they plan to migrate to etcd v3. Similarly, if you are using licenses in storage, please make sure that you are planning to migrate to autoloading. If you have mount filters, plan your migration to path filters. In the case of legacy MFA, we are actively targeting providing support for a brand new MFA feature in the upcoming release, the 1.10 release. And at that point, you can migrate to the MFA in OSS. Or if you are an enterprise MFA user, then you should be able to continue to use the enterprise MFA capability that is available. If you're using any of the standalone DB engines, then you must migrate to the combined DB secrets engine. Likewise, App ID users must migrate to app role auth method. And again, any references to future releases could be subject to change if there are drivers that necessitate the change. Again, all this will be captured in docs, so stay on the lookout for the docs as of 1.9. Moving on to the next slide. The feature that you see here is primarily an emphasis that within the Vault team, we are continuously making sure that we provide the best security posture for our customers. So prior to 1.9, Vault offers the option to add custom headers to UI paths, but not to other paths like HTTP root path or API endpoint paths. And what this results in is more overheads for customers. For instance, when they run vulnerability scans, they see warnings, and these warnings may be related to missing security headers at these root paths or API paths. And this is additional overheads for you because you might need to be seeking required exceptions, approvals to work around these warnings. And sometimes it is a gap that you might want to fill for your compliance reasons as well. And so as of 1.9, what we have done is provided the ability to configure customizable headers at the root path and the API endpoint paths through the HCL config file. Next slide, please. So today, Vault customers cannot restrict access to clusters at a namespace level. If you can think of a multi-tenant environment where you want to be able to control certain operations for namespace A, because perhaps you've sensed undue traffic at namespace A, and so you want to enforce some controls at that namespace level, but you do not want to do something similar at namespace B, because maybe namespace B is more mission critical and you don't want to impact business continuity. Prior to 1.9, you could not do that. You could not do that without really restricting that vault access at the overall system level. If you're familiar with HCP Vault, and if you are in your journey to, in some phase of journey towards HCP Vault, which is the cloud service offering of Vault, then this becomes all the more important because you have access to the admin namespace. And if you want to be able to perform a break glass procedure, then you need the ability to control access to that admin namespace alone. So with 1.9, we have provided the ability for admins to flexibly control operations within the context of the namespace that they have access to. So you should see benefit from a self-managed standpoint. And again, if you are in your journey towards HCP Vault, then this would definitely be something that you'd find significant value in as well. And now I'll go on to hand off to Pushya to take over from here.
Thank you, Aarti. All right, so here we'll be talking about the Terraform provider for Vault, and upcoming is the version 3 of this provider. If you are using the Terraform provider for Vault already, you will know that the Terraform SDK version 1 was deprecated. And if you're thinking about planned improvements and maintenance, this can be of impact to you. So the Vault Terraform provider with the version 3, the major version, will now be compatible with Terraform's SDK version 2. And I just want to call out a few things along this. One thing is that the Vault provider version 3 will require Terraform 0.12 and above as your Terraform release. At the same time, as we release the 3.0 version 2.x of the Vault providers, will be under maintenance mode. And so we will only include security fixes from there onwards. So we urge all of you to upgrade to version 3, and we will have the upgrade guides ready as the release approaches. This one is about a Microsoft change that we are aligning with. So far, we have been using Azure AD Graph API, which is being deprecated by Microsoft. The date is June 30, 2022, at which point this API will stop responding. Now, in keeping with Microsoft's introduction of the replacement API, which is MS Graph API, Vault's Azure Secrets Engine can utilize this new API endpoints. The flag is mentioned there for familiarity. It's use Microsoft Graph API. A couple of things here I'd like to call out. One is Microsoft is phasing out Azure AD Graph API fast. For example, on the web UI, the ability to configure the Azure AD Graph permissions for an application is grayed out at this point. You can still do it through MS Graph APIs, which is Required Resource Access API, or Azure PowerShell by setting the Azure AD application. But it is important to start thinking about the phase out in your environment as well. Another auxiliary point, if you will, is that the root rotate API is now available. MS Graph API has a fairly quick turnaround time on the overall eventual consistency. So this works out really well for the root rotate API, where new client secret is handled. With that, I will move us on to a new section, which is ADP module features, and hand this over to Narayan for some cool topics.
Thank you, Pusha. As Darshan and the team generally mentioned, Vault has several different capabilities. One is in the core secrets management area, and then and now we're talking about the advanced data protection use cases. Right, Vault already has the transit secrets engine, which was introduced a long time ago, which allows for encryption and decryption services. But with the transform secrets engine, which I believe was introduced in version 1.4 or 1.5, you have the ability to selectively encode and decode sensitive data. So in this case, say you wanted to encode a credit card number to look like a credit card number, but not actually be the credit card number, you could use the transform engine to preserve the format of that credit card number. What the transform secrets engine lacked was handling of cases such as, hey, I want to preserve spaces, or I want to preserve the dashes that are in the credit card number, or I only want to showcase the last 4 digits of the credit card number for, in my database or in my UI. So with 1.9, we're adding some advanced handling capabilities for the transform secrets engine, especially in the format preserving encryption case. So in this case, you can set up either an encoding format to say, hey, my plain text looks like this example where it says CCN and it's a long credit card number, but when it gets encoded, you just get the encoded text that looks like the credit card number. But on the decode side, you can either choose to decode the entire thing, or in this example we're showing, you just decode the last 4 digits and just show the last 4 digits. So so this is just gives us some advanced data handling capabilities. Next slide, please. So part of the advanced data protection module that we have within Vault, folks can either do data protection, or we also have the ability for Vault to act as a key manager of sorts. So the key management secrets engine, which was introduced 3 releases ago, allows customers who are running workloads in the cloud to bring their own key. AWS calls this customer managed encryption key, so does GCP, and Azure calls this BYOK. In previous releases, we had released support for AWS KMS and Azure Key Vault, but with 1.9, which will come out in middle to end of November, we will have support for GCP KMS as well. So now Vault can centrally be the root of trust for all your keys and distribute them to the various cloud providers. So now you can safely enable things like bring your own key or server-side encryption, but manage those keys centrally from Vault. Next slide, please. With 1.9, Vault will also have the ability to act as a key manager for Microsoft SQL servers when you enable transparent data encryption. So in this case, a database admin can come in and enable transparent data encryption. We will use the EKM module within MS SQL and provide an MSI installer. So Vault, you can now install this module alongside your SQL Server and configure it to talk to Vault. When transparent data encryption is enabled, MS SQL generates a data encryption key, and the data encryption key is then further protected by transiting it through Vault. And this encrypted data encryption key is stored in MS SQL. And whenever MS SQL wants to do read or write operations, it will decrypt the data encryption key and then decrypt or encrypt the data, all transparently to the user. Just a slight caveat, the DLL might be slightly delayed. We're going through some pipeline issues to automate the release of the DLL. So it may just show up a week or so after Vault 1.9 is released. With that, I wanted to kind of pass the baton back over to Darshana. If we go to the next slide, please, to talk about some of the improvements that were made on the Vault UI.
Thank you, Narayan. I'm excited to provide you all with some updates on the Vault UI and product experience for 1.9. We already went over the client count improvements, which have a UI component as well. So let's walk through some of the others. So the first feature is customized metadata for KV secrets engine. I do want to mention that this is not a UI improvement alone, but also has corresponding CLI and API capabilities built in 1.9. However, we've also invested in a neat UI for this. So some customers have requested for the ability to specify custom metadata for KV secrets. This is to help with providing tags such as description, owner, and technical contact information to help with data management. The tags can be used from a compliance perspective to mark specific secrets as high priority, for example, to track its activity. In 1.9, we're delivering the capability to attach custom metadata to KV secrets, one map of metadata across multiple versions of secrets. And we're also providing the ability to return this metadata in the response when you read or get secrets. So you could search these tags in the audit logs, for example. And again, this will serve in the case of compliance. We're excited for you to try this feature and let us know your feedback. Next slide, please. So this feature provides the ability to view metadata information for PKI certificates in the Vault UI. Prior to 1.9, only PKI certificate serial number data was provided in the UI, and administrators needed to map this serial number to other certificate data using the CLI. And this was a painful experience because in order to seek information on certificates or perform certificate lifecycle management tasks, such as checking to see when a certificate needs to be renewed, they had to be multiple touch points with Vault via the UI as well as the CLI. So in 1.9, we introduced functionality to display additional PKI certificate metadata information in the UI, including date issued, date of expiry, as well as subject and name, to provide a much better admin and operator experience for this. Next slide, please. So from conversations with some customers, we've learned that there are non-technical or semi-technical end users who want to leverage Vault to generate static or dynamic credentials to access databases. These could be AV professionals or support team members who want to access a secure audio-visual or support database. And they otherwise are not operators or developers who work with Vault or are familiar with Vault. So until 1.7, we did not have a UI to help these types of users generate database credentials in order for them to leverage secure databases of their choice. So starting Vault 1.7, we've been adding support for various database secret engines, configuration workflows, as well as credential generation workflows in the UI. So in 1.7, we added support for MongoDB. In 1.8, we added support for MS SQL and MySQL. And in 1.9, we're adding support for Oracle, Elasticsearch, as well as PostgreSQL in the UI. So I will now pass the baton back to Narayan to walk through some of our tech preview features for 1.9. Thank you.
Thank you, Darshana. Last couple of features that we want to talk about that we're releasing as tech preview for our customers so that we can gather feedback before we can finalize on the API. One of them is Vault will start acting as an OIDC bridge or an OIDC provider. In this case, the example is, let's just say you're writing your application, but you want to delegate authentication and authorization to Vault. Just to level set, OIDC is an identity layer on top of OAuth, and it's a very well-known specification. And I think everyone here has encountered OIDC when you try to log into a website and say, hey, use my Google account or my Facebook account or my Apple ID to log into an account. So in this case, the client, which is the application that's logging into a particular service, is delegating authentication and authorization to Google, for instance, which acts as an OIDC provider. So in this case, the example that we're showing is Boundary, but this could be any application that supports OIDC. Vault can these applications can now leverage the Vault identity in order to be able to authenticate and authorize themselves into a particular application. So this is super exciting for us, and we're definitely looking for a lot of feedback on this particular use case. Next slide, please. And the last thing I want to mention is this: the KV secrets engine is getting a patch function. So the example here is in prior releases. Let's just say you wanted to update a key or a value in the KV store. What you had to do is you had to read the entire object out, update the value, and then push it back into the store, and then you get a new version of that store. But with 1.9, we're releasing in tech preview a patch feature. Which will allow you to, with an ACL rule, with an updated privilege, a user can just patch an existing version, and you don't have to give that user or that role any read capability. So, so this is pretty exciting, where you want to say that, hey, I just want the ability for a service or a user to be able to update a key or a value without having the ability to read it, right? In future versions, we will add the ability for having that role be able to read values as well. So again, both of these features that I mentioned are in tech preview stages. We wanted to get feedback on the user experience, the workflow, before we start finalizing on the APIs and have users commit to using that API. And I know I saw a question about sorry, I'm looking at a question. Another general question: many users are asking for a feature to store. I wanted to open it up for Q&A. So if you have questions, feel free to use the Q&A panel, Q&A button on the bottom to ask questions, or feel free to unmute and ask your question as well. I think that's pretty much what we had. So I'm open to answering any questions, or all of us are open to answering any questions if you have any.
Thank you so much, Narayan. Let's keep the line open for the next few minutes to see if there are questions, and we'll welcome any comments, feedback as well, either today or through your HashiCorp customer success manager or the representative. Would love to engage further and understand your requirements. I see a few comments coming in the chat as well. So. And there is a one comment in the chat by Siva Kumar around secrets, and can we have multi-line secrets or a file as a secret? And I think that's something that we are exploring and investigating, but we'd love to engage further and understand your specific requirements.
There's a question here in the thing about, can you speak to any work being done to integrate with Terraform Enterprise in a more secure manner, things like Secret Zero? And that's a great question. We're actively in talks with our colleagues in the Terraform side on how we can better work with Terraform Enterprise. Some of the things that we've already introduced is we've introduced a Terraform Enterprise and a Terraform Cloud Secrets engine that allows you to mint short-lived tokens for Terraform Cloud or Terraform Enterprise runs. We're looking at other integrations as well. We don't necessarily have a timeline, but more than happy to work with you to understand your use cases and figure out how we can better work together.
And then we have a couple of feature requests open around that, right, Narayan, that we are actually looking at. So
we do, yeah.
Yeah, we can follow up on it. Yeah.
There's one other question on some aspects of metadata for certificates, like say identifying it with the next days of expiry, finding certificates related to specific entities and common patterns, etc. I think it'll be great to understand if there are additional metadata of interest. As you know, as Darshana explained, we have added a few in 1.9. And if there's others that makes, say, searchability easier, querying easier, or any other aspects of your operations easier, we'd love to get that feedback. So we'll take a note of some of these called out here, but please feel free to pass that feedback to us via your HashiCorp CS representatives.
And there is one more comment or question from Jeremy in the chat around, is there any planned work with the Vault Windows agent where we're really missing logs that go to Windows event service or to a file? Aarti, do you want to maybe comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Jeremy, we are definitely evaluating enhancements that we can do to the agent closely. And I would love to understand the use case and what exactly you are seeking there better. There are a few things that we are looking at in the context of Windows, and Windows, the agent as a Windows service. So I'd love to connect with you to understand that better. So if you could reach out via your CS, I'd love to gather more details as we go through these evaluations for the agent.
Okay. If there are no other questions or comments, Hope, Kaylee, I believe we can safely close the webinar, and then certainly we are available to kind of have follow-ons with you all to talk through the feature or even kind of discuss some of the requirements that you have laid out or asked about here in further detail. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending, and hope this was useful and useful from a knowledge standpoint as well as good use of your time. So thank you for attending, and have a nice rest of the day.
And thanks to the amazing Vault team. Great work.